Paris Mountain State Park is one of 16 South Carolina parks built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. The shelters, bridges, and buildings are all built in a rustic architectural style of the era that emphasizes natural aesthetics and durable functionality. In September of 2024, Hurricane Helene left tremendous damage to the upstate in her wake, including large areas of Paris Mountain, forcing closure of the park for a full month while trees were cleared and repairs were made. Park rangers and volunteers throughout the area worked long hours restoring trails and making sure the parks were safe to welcome visitors again. The park covers 1,700 acres in Greenville County and includes 4 lakes and over 17 miles of hiking and biking trails. There's a swimming area and boat rental located at Lake Placid below the Park Center building. Outside the center is a brief description of the history of this swimming area, which was for whites only until the early 1960s, when separate time periods were established for when white and black parkgoers were allowed to swim. But when a class action lawsuit was filed to bring all facilities into compliance with the Civil Rights Act of 1954, the South Carolina Attorney General closed all state parks rather than fully integrate them, an example of how deeply rooted racism was in our country during this era. The parks were only reopened in 1966 due to pressure from the public after having been closed for 3 years. The lovely native plant garden was in hibernation mode as it was a very cold January day when I visited. I went inside the beautiful park center and had the pleasure of speaking with Head Ranger Emily and Ranger John about the parks and our mutual love of the unique qualities of each one. Emily was kind enough to video my official stamp for park number 43. I really love all the natural stone stairways found in these parks. Next, I drove up the mountain for a very short hike along the Sulphur Springs Trail. Did I mention it was only in the upper 20s that day? The mountain itself is what is known as a monadnock, which means a single mountain rising from a relatively flat area. It's a term that originated in the Abenaki Native American language, meaning mountain that stands alone, and early colonial geologists adopted the term. As a former New England resident, I was familiar with Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire, but wasn't aware that it's a general descriptive term that is applied to other mountains as well. There was a lot of evidence of the hurricane damage and the huge task it was to clear the trails. Finally, why is it called Paris Mountain, thousands of miles from that French capital? Well, a colonist by the name of Richard Paris, spelled Pearis, either bought, stole, or swindled the indigenous Cherokee into documents that declared him the owner of the land. And because consistent spelling was far less common in the 18th century, the mountain became known as Paris Mountain, spelled without the E, Greenville's own landmark that rises above its surroundings in a different way from the one in the capital of France.